There's a specific kind of person who goes silent when someone asks about their birthday plans. Not awkward, not apologetic, just quiet. Like they've been asked to explain something they stopped believing in years ago. And here's what's strange. They're not depressed. They're not cynical. Many of them are deeply loved, professionally successful, emotionally intelligent. But when their birthday arrives, they treat it like a Tuesday. They go to work, they run errands, they might grab coffee, answer emails, scroll through birthday messages with a faint smile that never quite reaches their eyes. And if you ask them why, they'll give you a reason that sounds reasonable. I don't like the attention. It's just another day. I'm not really a birthday person. But underneath those words is something else entirely, something they may not even realize they're protecting. Because the people who treat their birthdays like nothing are often the same people who've spent their entire lives making sure everyone else's needs are met before their own. This isn't about hating birthdays. It's about what happens when you've been taught, implicitly, quietly, over years, that taking up space is selfish, that wanting to be celebrated is narcissistic, that your existence, fundamentally, should justify itself through usefulness rather than simply being. And the birthday becomes the one day a year when that belief system gets tested. You know this pattern if you've ever felt a strange discomfort when someone insists on celebrating you. Not gratitude, discomfort, like you're suddenly on stage without knowing your lines. You know it if you've downplayed your birthday to friends saying, let's keep it low-key, when what you really mean is, please don't make me the center of attention, because I don't know how to hold that without feeling like I owe you something. You know it if you've ever felt more relief than disappointment when birthday plans fell through. If you volunteered to work on your birthday because it gave you an excuse. If you've noticed that you're incredibly attentive to other people's birthdays, remembering dates, planning surprises, writing thoughtful messages, but when it comes to your own, you let it pass with barely a whisper. And here's the most telling sign. You feel guilty about feeling this way, because logically, you know birthdays are supposed to be happy. You know people love you. You know you should want to celebrate. But somewhere deep inside, celebration feels like a spotlight on something you're not sure deserves to be seen. Here's what most people don't understand about this pattern. It's not actually about birthdays at all. It's about a deeply rooted belief that your value is conditional, that love, attention, and celebration must be earned through achievement, service, or sacrifice. And a birthday violates that entire system because it celebrates you for simply existing, for making it another year around the sun, without having to prove anything. Psychologically, this creates what's called a worthiness conflict. Your conscious mind knows you deserve kindness, but your subconscious has been running a different program for years, one that says visibility equals vulnerability and celebration equals debt. Think about how we learn this. Often, it starts in childhood. Maybe you had a parent who was emotionally inconsistent, loving one moment, withdrawn the next, and you learned that the safest way to exist was to be low maintenance, to not ask for too much, to celebrate others so that you could feel valuable through service rather than presence. Or maybe you had siblings, and you noticed that the more you faded into the background, the less conflict there was. That being the easy one earned you a kind of quiet approval. Or maybe you experienced a birthday that went wrong, plans that fell apart, promises that weren't kept, expectations that led to disappointment, and somewhere in your young mind you made a decision. If I don't expect anything, I can't be let down. And that decision became a blueprint. A psychological defense mechanism disguised as preference. Picture this. It's your birthday. You're at work. A coworker who barely knows you beyond morning small talk approaches your desk with a cupcake and a grin. Happy birthday, they say. Too loud, too enthusiastic. And in that moment you feel a cascade of sensations that happen faster than thought. First, a flash of panic. Who told them? Then a forced smile that feels like a mask you're pulling over your face. Your body tenses. You say thank you, but your voice sounds wrong, too high, too performative. You blow out the candle, people are watching. You can feel their eyes. You laugh because that's what you're supposed to do. And underneath it all, there's this thought, quiet but persistent. I don't deserve this. This is too much. I haven't done anything to earn this attention. The cupcake sits on your desk for an hour. You eventually eat it, not because you want to, but because leaving it feels rude, like evidence of your inability to receive even the smallest gesture of kindness. Later that evening, a friend texts, "What are we doing for your birthday?" You type and delete 3 responses. What you want to say is, "I don't know how to celebrate myself without feeling like I'm performing narcissism." What you actually send is, "I'm keeping it chill this year, maybe just a quiet dinner," and you feel relieved. Not because you don't want connection, but because you've successfully avoided the terrifying intimacy of being celebrated without having to give anything in return. Let's go deeper, because this pattern doesn't exist in isolation. It evolves in stages, each one building on the last. Stage 1. The quiet accommodation. In the beginning, it's simple. You're young, and you notice that when you ask for less, things feel smoother. When you're excited about your birthday, there's pressure. Pressure on your parents to plan something, pressure on friends to show up, pressure on you to seem happy enough to justify the effort. So you start accommodating. You say things like, "I don't need a big party," or "just spending time together is enough," and people believe you. They take you at your word. And a part of you feels proud. I'm so easy to please. I'm not high maintenance like other kids. But what you don't realize is that you're learning to associate self-erasure with being good. Stage 2. The pattern solidifies. As you get older, this becomes your identity. You become the person who doesn't care about birthdays. Friends stop asking what you want to do. Family stops pushing. And on the surface, this feels like freedom. No expectations, no disappointments. But internally, something else is happening. You're testing people. Unconsciously, you're waiting to see if anyone will insist. If anyone will push past your deflection and say, "No, seriously, let me celebrate you." And when they don't, when they take your "I don't need anything" at face value, it confirms a fear you didn't even know you had. If I don't perform my value, I become invisible. Stage 3. The emotional calculus. Now you're an adult, and the pattern is so ingrained that you don't even recognize it anymore. You genuinely believe you don't care about birthdays. But here's the tell. You notice other people's birthdays obsessively. You remember dates, you plan surprises, you write long, heartfelt messages, you show up with gifts and enthusiasm, and it feels good, not just because you love them, but because their joy validates you. It proves you have value through what you give. But when your birthday comes, you feel nothing. Or worse, you feel a low-grade anxiety that you can't name. Because celebrating yourself would mean believing you have inherent worth, and that belief system was dismantled a long time ago. Stage 4. The revelation. Eventually, if you're lucky, you hit a moment of clarity. Maybe it's a birthday where someone who truly loves you refuses to let it pass unnoticed. They don't throw you a surprise party or make a big scene. They just sit with you and say, "I'm glad you exist, that's it, that's the whole reason." And in that moment, something cracks. Because you realize you've been waiting your entire life for permission to matter without producing evidence. To be loved not for what you do, but simply because you are. Here's the uncomfortable truth that sits underneath all of this. You're not afraid of being celebrated. You're afraid that if people celebrate you and really see you, they'll realize you're not worth it. That's the wound. That's the belief system running in the background. Because when you treat your birthday like a normal day, you stay in control. You manage expectations. You protect yourself from the crushing possibility of being seen fully and found lacking. And here's the second truth, the one that's even harder to sit with. You've become so skilled at being low maintenance that you've convinced yourself you don't need anything. But need and want are not weaknesses. They're the price of being human. Every time you downplay your birthday, you're sending yourself a message. Your existence alone is not enough. You must earn the right to be celebrated. And that message, repeated year after year, becomes the architecture of your self-worth. But here's where the story shifts. What if treating your birthday like a normal day isn't actually humility? What if it's the opposite, a form of control disguised as indifference? Think about it. By refusing to want, by refusing to expect, by refusing to celebrate, you're protecting yourself from the vulnerability of receiving without reciprocating. You're avoiding the terrifying intimacy of letting people love you for no reason other than you exist. And that's not humility. That's self-protection masquerading as virtue. Because real humility isn't about making yourself smaller. It's about accepting that you're worthy of care even when you're not performing, producing, or proving anything. Real humility is letting someone sing you happy birthday even though it makes you want to crawl out of your skin. Real humility is saying, "I'd love to celebrate," and trusting that the people who show up want to be there, not out of obligation, but because your presence in their life matters. Here's the reframe. Your birthday is not about proving you deserve celebration. It's about practicing the radical act of receiving without earning. And that practice, that small annual moment of letting yourself be seen and celebrated simply for existing, is actually one of the most important psychological skills you can develop. Because if you can't receive on your birthday, how are you receiving anywhere else in your life? How are you receiving compliments? Probably deflecting them. How are you receiving help? Probably feeling guilty about it. How are you receiving love? Probably wondering when you'll have to pay it back. The birthday is just the most visible symptom of a much deeper pattern. The inability to believe that your existence, without justification, is enough. So let's come back to that person who goes silent when asked about birthday plans. Now you understand what that silence actually is? It's not indifference. It's not maturity. It's not being chill. It's the sound of someone who learned, a long time ago, that the safest way to exist is to not take up too much space. That the best way to be loved is to not ask for love. That celebration is something you give, not something you receive. But here's the thing about that belief system. It's exhausting, it's lonely, and it's based on a lie. Because you were never too much. You were never a burden. You were never supposed to earn the right to be celebrated. You've been worthy the entire time. And maybe this year, or next year, or the year after, you try something different. Not because you suddenly believe you deserve it, but because you're willing to practice. You say yes to dinner. You let someone make a fuss. You sit with the discomfort of being the center of attention for one meal, one evening, one moment. And maybe it feels awkward. Maybe you still want to deflect. Maybe you still feel that old impulse to minimize and disappear, but you stay. You let them sing. You blow out the candles, and you notice, just for a second, that the world didn't end. That being celebrated didn't turn you into someone narcissistic or selfish. That receiving love didn't create a debt you have to repay. It just felt like being human. And maybe eventually you start to understand that treating your birthday like a normal day was never about the day itself. It was about permission. Permission to matter. Permission to be seen. Permission to exist without apology. And the most profound thing you can do is give yourself that permission. Not because you've earned it, but because you never had to. You've been waiting for someone to insist you're worth celebrating. But the person who needs to insist is you.